السلام عليكم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to speak in English today, and I think that's okay. But I'll try to switch it up. But I apologize. This presentation was it came together in a short amount of time, so I didn't have time to translate it. But if you have any questions, please ask me. So I was asked today to deliver a presentation on the risk of dementia and reducing the risk or mitigating the risk of dementia as we age. This is obviously something that is a condition that it's an age-related condition. But it's not necessary. It's not something that necessarily happens with age, and there are things that we can do to increase our vitality and reduce our risk. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. So what is dementia, this broad category of dementia? Dementia is not one thing. Like I said, it's an umbrella term, and it's used to describe a general decline in cognitive abilities, including things like thinking, remembering, reasoning, and of course, we all know that it can significantly impact your daily life, your independence. It has a great deal of impact on our day-to-day activities and our connections. So more specifically, what are the common types of dementia? So the first one, Alzheimer's, that's the one that most of us are familiar with, right? And that is actually the most prevalent type of dementia. It's Alzheimer's, which is, it causes, we're all aware, it causes gradual memory loss, confusion, inability to do the things that you were once able to do. You also have vascular dementia, which is linked to problems with blood flow in the brain. This is oftentimes associated with an episode, something like a stroke, or if you have, certain cardiovascular conditions, it can be impacted by that. And then there's other types of dementia that are more, that impact us more in a muscular way, like Parkinson's disease or Lewy body dementia, and there's other types. But we're going to be focusing most on Alzheimer's in this talk. So when I talk about dementia, or I'm talking about mostly Alzheimer's type of dementia. And if you have any questions, please feel free to stop at any time, and let's make this a discussion as opposed to just me talking to you. So how does dementia affect us? So the main domains of cognitive function in which dementia affects us is executive function. So this is things like, executive function is the ability to execute what you want to do, right? So you want to do something and you execute it. We all have this natural ability to do it. Planning, organizing, decision-making, and when that's affected, what that can look like is things like maybe you're struggling to do the things that you once were able to do, like just paying, your household tasks, things like cooking or paying bills, planning family events, for example. Memory, of course, we're all familiar with this. These are just, challenges recalling things that you think are, that were an innate part of your memory at one point. So recalling recent events or important information, for example, and how this can look is, you could be, oftentimes people repeat the same questions to their family members again and again, when is so-and-so coming over? When is so-and-so coming over? And they often forget that they asked. Another symptom is your processing speed and reaction time. So you have slower cognitive processing and you react slower to things than it would, than it would previously take you to do. So, for example, when you're driving or when you're walking and a car is approaching, you react slower than you would normally. And language as well. So language is impacted. For example, you may have trouble finding the right words as you're talking, and And of course, I should explain that none of these things in and by themselves, obviously we all have problems with memory sometimes. We all have problems with executive function and speed and language at any time, that these are normal parts of functioning. It's just the whole, when is all of these things are impacted to a certain degree when dementia is present, right? So having any of these things is not a problem in and of itself. I should mention that, I'm not trying to, make everything a problem, but really, these are the things that are impacted in a very significant way.
So how do you diagnose that somebody has dementia?
How is it diagnosed?
Initial diagnosis.
So it's usually a process of elimination. And how people diagnose it. So it's not straightforward. Sometimes doctors will they essentially cross out other things that could be impacted. You may have to go through some cognitive testing. So there's cognitive testing. There's different doctors or different physicians might use different strategies to do it. But for example, there's tests, there's something called a clock drawing test. The clock drawing test is where you draw a clock. You are asked to put the numbers inside it as it would and put the hands at 10 after 11. And your ability to draw a clock, draw a circle, put the numbers where they belong, draw the hands where they belong, that tells that actually they've studied this and has a very strong correlation with all the things that I mentioned: executive function, memory, reaction, all these things. It measures these things. There's other tests, word recall, for example, where you're in a clinical setting. You will receive a set of words and then you have to recall them back. Maze task. You have to, the maze, remember the maze games? So essentially finding your way through a maze from one point to another, those things. So there's a list of, testing that's done. And there's different categories of dementia too. So there's mild cognitive impairment. It's not necessarily dementia. There's so based on the results of of those tests and there's memory clinics that you might go to see how your memory is progressing. So it's a multidisciplinary kind of diagnosis.
And what age factor?
Age factor. So they say that it increases more significantly after age 65, and at a higher speed. Right? But what happens after age 65? Usually retirement, right? And oftentimes a very significant changes to your daily activities, right? So there's not, it is age related, obviously from the data that we see, but it doesn't have to be. It's not necessarily age related. It's not like, you age and now you're going to get dementia. It's not like that, right? So it is, there is an age factor. There's a genetic factor, of course. There's also genetic testing that people do. There is a rare gene that if you have that, then you're more likely to have it. There's a higher risk if you have, for example, type 2 diabetes. So if you have insulin resistance, that increases your risk. But all of these things are manageable, and all of these things are there's behaviors or there's things within our control that levers that we can pull to manage these things and to reduce our risk.
What about in a stroke?
Mm-hmm.
You have a memory loss and finding the right word. It is different than dementia.
It's a type of dementia. It's different than, for example, Alzheimer's, which is gradual. So stroke is one time, right? And that's related to a constriction of blood flow in your blood vessels.
But after some time, it comes back.
It comes back, yeah.
In dementia, once it's gone, it is gone.
It could be, not necessarily. So dementia is it's a cognitive decline of any kind. So that the stroke, it could be a part of that. but most likely the ones that we're most familiar with is Alzheimer's. But but you're right, it comes back, but it is also considered a type of dementia though. So lack of physical activity. This really is, I would say, the biggest, the number one thing that can contribute, because that also contributes, is it's a domino, right? We know the dominoes, like it's a domino effect. It contributes to everything else. Lack of physical activity contributes to our diet and physical activity. Obviously they go hand in hand. So really, regular exercise boosts the blood flow to our brain and oxygen to our brain, and it supports cognitive function. Obviously, diet, unhealthy diet. So as I mentioned, insulin resistance, that's one of the key factors that contribute to onset of dementia and to onset of Alzheimer's specifically. So really managing that, and which is manageable. Type 2 diabetes is manageable. So having a nutrient-rich diet with antioxidants, anti-inflammatory properties really does help protect the brain. Sleep. This is another really, really, really big one. Really big one. We don't pay enough attention to it, but poor sleep, consistently having poor sleep, of course, is, or consistently having quality sleep is crucial for memory consolidation and brain health. And not having that, of course, we know what that can lead to. Chronic stress. Of course, I don't think I have to, emphasize that too much. Obviously, the stress hormones, the cortisol, they can damage our brain over time, leading to cognitive decline and social isolation. These aren't all of them, but these are the big key drivers. Engaging in social activities, maintaining strong relationships really do help keep the brain active and healthy. So, strategies to reduce dementia. This shouldn't come as a surprise because of the previous factors that I mentioned. It's all related to what the things that lead to dementia are the things that we should address to reduce the risk of dementia. The number one key driver here being exercise. It is so important. It is scientifically and, according to the most recent research, this is the biggest driver the biggest lever that we can pull to reduce risk of dementia. And this is not, by the way, this is not, for young people or something that you do at a young age. Absolutely not. If you've never exercised before, if you've never exercised a day in your life before, it's never too late to start. And there's always something you can be doing. Always something you can be doing. So generally, they say the recommendation is to aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate activity weekly. But depending on what your current level is, even if you aim for even just a 30% increase based on your baseline, that's still good, right? Sleep, that's another key. So the exercise, sleep, and metabolic health, those are the main levers. If we can control those, we can largely reduce the risk of dementia. So prioritizing sleep, maintaining a healthy weight and diet to protect your brain, and then of course social engagement and stress management. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these things. Okay, so I'm going to talk more in general what the recommendation is for from the sort of the Canadian Society of like the fitness institution, and obviously, and doctors also promote this as well. So exercise overall, when I say exercise, it's again, that's kind of an umbrella term, and we need different types of activity. Essentially, what we're talking about here is movement. That's it. We're just talking about movement. Keeping our bodies moving, our joints moving them through the full range of motion. So making sure that, if your joint is, meant to move from here to here, we're exercising that range of motion, full range of motion for all our joints. Alhamdulillah, one thing that, of course, we can all reflect on is our prayer that we're supposed to do 5 times a day. Of course, it's a spiritual activity, but it's also, we don't realize it's also a physical activity, right? And there's a reason for that. There's a wisdom in that. We're supposed to be moving. Okay. I'm getting the timer. we're supposed to be moving. And what do? We move through the full range of motion when we pray. We move all our joints, right? And there really is a lot of, we can talk about that, but we don't have time for that right now. So what we need to be doing is aerobic activity in general, which aerobic activity just means something that gets your heart pumping. That's it, right? So, the recommendation, as I mentioned before, 150 minutes. That's a little bit, if you're not used to that, that's probably not feasible. So the recommendation can be 90 minutes of moderate activity per week. So that equates to half-hour walks 3 times a week. That's it. And then 60 minutes of high intensity training. That's 20 minutes 3 times a week of just more maybe fast paced, something that gets your blood pumping a little bit harder, right? Like a little bit more intensely. So aerobic activity, strength training. We think strength training, for some reason we have this, like, strength training is essentially just lifting weights, heavy weights, and which grows our muscles, or which maintains our muscle, let's just say maintains our muscle mass and improves coordination for better cognitive function. For some reason, when we talk about lifting weights or strength training, we think like bodybuilding, or we think heavy. It's not heavy. This is for everyone. And we all have to do this, right? We're all doing lifting, heavy things, boxes here, there. We're all doing this in our daily function. So we need to be training this. We need to be training our muscles to be able to maintain those functions. And when we do strength training, that protects our brain, according to the most up-to-date science. That is the biggest driver for protecting our brain. And then flexibility and balance, again, to protect our joints, overall joint health, overall well-being, also preventing falls. So, this can just be like light stretching or yoga or something twice a week. Improving sleep quality. So, of course, these are AI images, by the way. Improving, if we don't already, having a routine, having a consistent sleep schedule. So that's the most important. Maybe even according to the most recent science, maybe even more important than how long we sleep is having a consistent sleep schedule. So going to sleep at the same time every day. Optimizing your sleep environment, making sure that your bedroom is dark, cool, quiet, so you're not waking up throughout the night. Limiting your screen time. Avoid using electronic devices close to bedtime, as the blue light, it can disrupt your circadian rhythm. And then maybe if you need it, you can consider supplements, but I wouldn't really spend too much time on that, because those other things are more important. And then metabolic health. So blood sugar, as I mentioned, the number one, I guess you could say, condition or disease that's related to dementia is diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So maintaining your healthy blood sugar levels can reduce your risk of dementia and improve cognitive function. Incorporating healthy fats into our diets, omega-3 fatty acids and other healthy fats, they really do support our brain health. And oftentimes our diets are lacking this, so maybe just making sure that they're included. And then the vitamins and minerals, ensuring adequate intake of our regular vitamins and minerals like zinc, magnesium. But notice how I didn't start with this. I didn't start with the vitamins and minerals. Oftentimes in our communities, when we're talking about these things, this is the first thing we go to. We go, oh, here's this vitamin or this totka and this, that. That's not, these things can help. I'm not saying they can't help. They can help, but they're not the biggest drivers. If we want to reduce our risk from here to here, those other things, exercise, sleep, nutrition, those other things are going to be the big drivers. And then these other things, vitamins, minerals, these things can move us forward a little bit. It's important, but they're not the big things. And then engaging in social activities. I'm not going to spend too much time here, because I don't think everyone here is well, well connected, alhamdulillah, socially. So, just maintaining our connections, maybe volunteering, joining a club, trying new activities, new hobbies, keeps our brain active. And, if we're keeping our bodies moving at the same time, then all the better. And of course, managing our stress effectively, mindfulness, relaxation, noticing noticing when we're getting overwhelmed, noticing when we do have chronic stress, talking to someone about it, seeking emotional support when we need it from our family, friends, and maybe even counseling if we need it, staying socially connected, and, really looking at your own lifestyle and seeing what are the lifestyle changes individually that we need to make. So in conclusion, I'm getting the light. In conclusion, I've talked at length about the healthy habits that we can adopt, and how we can better understand our risk of dementia. Really, I don't think I need to harp too much about it with this group. I think you are all very engaged and you're all very active, mashallah. So, of course, maybe you can take this information to your circles, to your friends, and to just so we can have healthier communities.